Hi everyone. I am going to record a 15-minute video that will hopefully get us through a little bit more of chapter 22 in our history notes. And I'm on the wrong screen here when I started this, and then I couldn't stop it. So give me just a second to go back. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Here we go. Oh, nope, we gotta go back further than that. Anyway, welcome to my living room. Not my living room, my dining room. It's nice to have you all here. I think I need some of you guys to record videos so I can see your faces because I miss you all. Yep, one more screen before. Okay, so we did this. We did look at videos about Pearl Harbor and what happened. So please be patient with me here. Sorry about that. Not on the right place. My videos are limited to 15 minutes for now. It's about all that my system can handle, which is just fine. Okay, so we did that. Okay, so this is where we were. All right, so the attack on Pearl Harbor, Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy, and more on that in just a minute. This is a date you need to know. You will see this again. I guarantee it. That's a very important date. There were 2 waves of attack that day. First one came through about 7:30 Hawaii time. The second wave came about an hour later. Many ships and planes damaged, but more importantly, 2,400 American servicemen and women were killed, as well as some civilians. It was followed shortly by other conquests of U.S. and British bases in the Pacific. So Pearl Harbor was not the only place that was attacked. There were some others as well. Here's a picture from Pearl Harbor. And the most important thing to remember, though, is this was not a complete success for the Japanese. They intended to catch the Americans off guard and put us so off guard that we would never really catch up and that we would be instantly defeated. And that is just not the way it came because of these 3 reasons that I'm going to give you right now. First of all, they missed our aircraft carriers. All of the aircraft carriers that were stationed in Pearl Harbor were out at sea doing maneuvers, practice drills, those kind of things, and none of them were attacked at Pearl Harbor. None of them were damaged. They also did not completely destroy that Navy base. And I think the Japanese really underestimated our ability to pick back up and fix things quickly and get it back going. And thirdly, they woke the sleeping giant, so to speak. They united the Americans to enter this war in a way that we would never have been united had they not attacked. The attack at Pearl Harbor really was, in retrospect, probably the best way for Americans to enter the war, because that attack on us personally meant that we went in full force. And we'll talk more about something along with those lines in just a minute. Okay, so President Roosevelt the next day speaks to Congress and declares it a day that will live in infamy. Of course, that's famous for all the wrong reasons. And the declaration of war quickly followed. This is what I wanted to tell you about that. A joint session of Congress, FDR declares that December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. You can look up the YouTube recording of that. Congress voted almost unanimously to enter the war. There was only one negative vote for entering the war, and that was from Jeannette Rankin, who represented the people of Wyoming. And she elected to vote no. The reason, though, is that she was a Quaker, and it was against her religious beliefs to go to war for any reason. Shortly after, I'm going to go ahead and put all these up here. Shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the Philippines were attacked. This was an American-held territory. We had helped the Filipino people get ready for their own independence. We had not yet given them independence, so it was kind of like an American territory. The Bataan Peninsula was attacked, and we had to retreat from that. At that point, he's not a president, General MacArthur, who was in charge of all the forces in the Philippines, was ordered to leave. He did not want to. He wanted to stay and fight it out, but he did eventually leave, telling, of course, the Filipino people, I will return. And he did keep his word on that. We'll talk about that in the coming days. But of course, what comes afterwards was the Bataan, what is called the Bataan Death March. It was 78,000 American soldiers on that death march, and approximately 10,000 of them died on the march. Shortly after is the fall of Corregidor, an island fortress in the Philippines. And once Corregidor falls, the Philippines is firmly in Japanese hands and will remain there until the end of the war, when we'll fight to get it back. When was our first strike? When did we first take an offensive move against Japan? Well, that would be the famous Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle. The Doolittle raids were designed to give the Americans something positive to think about. And, there's a lot to be said. I'm sure by day 3, you guys are tired of homeschooling. You're tired of being stuck at home. You just want your normal life back. That's kind of the way Americans felt as the war was getting off to a start, and they were discouraged already. So the Doolittle raids were a positive thing. Jimmy Doolittle was a pilot who led a group of pilots into Tokyo, where they dropped bombs on the city itself. They were supposed to land in China, but that did not work as well as, and I think it was a weather issue that caused that not to work. So some of the men did land in interior China. One group actually landed in Russia, and they were held prisoner for 13 months in Russia. But they were eventually released. But this was it was a huge encouragement to Japan, to the Americans, that we were going to make it back to Japan. We were going to inflict the same type of pain on them that they had inflicted on us. The Battle of Midway. Okay, Coral Sea was a battle where the Japanese are continuing to advance towards Australia, but we were able to stop them at the Battle of the Coral Sea. Japanese expansion was again halted at Midway. Midway is an island in the middle of the Pacific. It is midway between, I believe it's Hawaii and Japan. This is a major turning point in the war, because this is the first battle that is ever fought between two ships that can't even see each other, because it was planes flying back and forth that held on to the most of this battle. The Japanese did not realize that we had broken their radio codes, so we were able to know what they were going to do. U.S. Admiral Chester Nimitz was the man in charge of the American forces at this battle. We were able to destroy 4 Japanese carriers, a cruiser, and about 250 airplanes. More than 3,000 Japanese soldiers died. American losses included 1 aircraft carrier, 1 destroyer, and 150 planes, but only 300 American lives were lost, which was a huge victory, really, for us. And that's going to it's going to turn the tide. But if you look on this map, you can see, there's my pointer. Here, here's the Philippines. I do not see Midway labeled on this map, but I see the Solomon Islands. We're going to fight in there. There's going to be battles in there. There's going to be battles here in Guam and in Saipan. All of these islands. I do not see Midway labeled, unfortunately. Okay, so Tokyo is still very far away, though. We still have a long way to go, and from here we'll try island hopping, and we'll get back to that later. Let's talk a little bit first about war on the home front. The claim was that each citizen would be a soldier, that we all had to do our part to help win this victory. War was won on the field and in the factory. The soldier could not do his job if there weren't people at home ready and equipped to supply him with what he needed. And of course, some individual freedoms were surrendered, as we are learning even today, that we have to surrender some of those personal freedoms that we embrace so heartily as Americans in order for the greater good to be accomplished. And the government strongly regulated the economy, of course, during this time. One of the ways the government controlled the economy was through the War Production Board. Much construction around our country ceased, and consumer goods were not being produced in the rate they had been. Instead, we resorted to rationing and recycling, especially items like glass. I'm not saying we didn't know how to necessarily recycle all the plastics and stuff at that point. All of those things had not been perfected as far as technology goes, but recycling glass, we definitely could do that, and other items as well. But rationing, this is an example here of a ration book. And if you needed something like a new pair of shoes, you had to ask mom and dad, okay, I need a new pair of shoes. And they'd check the rationing book and see if they had a coupon for a new pair of shoes, because you had to have the coupon and the money to pay for it in order to get that pair of shoes you thought you needed. So a lot of people did without things that they otherwise would have gotten. Okay, manpower and woman power. 15 million people served in the military, so this is going to affect nearly every American household. 268,000 of those were women, and the men between ages 18 and 45 could be drafted. So if you think about that, for some of you, that's both you and your father that could have been potentially drafted into the war effort. And of course, women are going to work in the workforce at home. They're going to work in factories, with the Red Cross, and so many different areas, doing whatever they can to encourage the war effort. I know I'm moving really fast, but I figure you guys have a pause button, so you can pause and take the notes and then start back. You can watch it twice, whatever you need to do. When I get to the end of the video, I will put in a short discussion question or a short quiz or something like that, just so you can prove to me that you have watched it. But this is the last slide I want to do, and I got 2 minutes to do it. So let me talk quick. I'm sorry about that. All right. So Congress passed modest tax increases during the war. Before the war, your book says that about 10% of Americans paid payroll taxes. But by the time the war was done, 90% of us did. So that is quite a change. And despite that, we only paid off through taxes about 45% of the war debt. 55% of it was added to our national debt, increasing that by 6-fold. Payroll deductions became a thing during the war, meaning that they deducted income taxes at the national level for the first time ever. I believe it was 1943 was the year that was installed. Let me quickly say blue stars and gold stars. Blue star, you put a blue star in your window if your son or daughter or whoever, somebody in your family was off to war. And that let everybody in your neighborhood know that you were in that war effort and that your loved one was away. It was changed to a gold star when you got news of a death. So if you saw a gold star in the window of somebody in your neighborhood, you knew that their loved one had been killed in the war effort. So that was one way that Americans all came together in ways that we have never seen since then. So be encouraged, and I will be back in touch. I miss you all.